feel like I sound a little bit like
Wait for it, and we're live. Finally. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans, a stabby chaos coordinator, and a chief shenanigator, geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, we're going to let our guest, Miss Andrea Franco-Cook, introduce herself to our listeners and viewers at home.
I hate being in the hot seat. This is my least favorite question, but I'm a veteran of the U.S. Army. I was an Airborne MP. I am an author by night. I just wrote a YA time travel fantasy, Excavating Fate. It's set in ancient Carthage. And then by day, I'm a clinical social worker who treats people who struggle with depression, anxiety, and PTSD.
And we hear that you're a mom and a grandma too, which means you combine all those things. And she is definitely tougher than all of us put together. If you can handle all those roles and be an MP, all the kudos, man.
Oh, yeah, and that's why I'm hoarse tonight, grandma role. When you're in a human... When you're around human petri dishes, this happens. So
how long were you in the Army?
I was in the Army 3 years. I served during peacetime in the late 80s. And it was a really taught me discipline. And, it was it also kind of built my self-esteem as well, too. It was a really great experience. And all three of my sons went in the military, too. I can't recommend it enough.
So did you hear that your mom wears combat boots then from your kids when they were younger saying that?
They never really did. I don't know why it never came up, but I never really got much of that at all. They were proud I was airborne. They thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, you were in when we wore God's camis, otherwise known as the BDUs, battle dress uniform, woodland pattern. They have gone through they cycled through that to the DCUs, the desert camouflage uniform I wore in Iraq. And then we went to, as I was getting out, the ACUs, which we jokingly call grandma's couch, because that's about the only thing you could blend in with that weird gray pattern. And then I don't even know what we're on now. They've changed uniforms so many times. I can't keep up. The funny part was only the U.S. Army, we spent millions of dollars to research the feasibility of a uniform, the pinks and greens, to go back to the uniform we wore in the 50s. We wanted to know whether it was a feasible uniform. Like, we kind of do because we did it already. But sure, spend $1 million. Drop in the bucket.
Experience trumps. Who knows?
Government spending at its best.
Yeah, I mean, they do look sharp when they're put together nice and actually ironed. But I still miss the Class A's, the green uniform, which you would have probably worn when you were in. The history of that was just nice because you can't actually wear on the new uniform the old combat leader tab, which is, for those of you who don't know, it's a green felt that you wear under your unit insignia on your lapels if you were a small unit leader of a combat unit. So it was like a big deal to get that. And right when I earned mine, they phased the uniform that let me wear it out. I'm like, nice jerks.
So rude.
And the one I have was passed on to me by my platoon sergeant who got his in Vietnam, and I had no one to pass it on to because they don't wear them anymore. So it's still sitting in my shadow box.
That's pretty cool.
And the cool thing was the old uniform, the dress blues that I got married in, and the old ones were the ones based on the Buffalo Soldiers uniform. So the pants are lighter than the top because they didn't get issued the same amount of uniforms as their white brethren. So they would roll their top up and stick it in their saddlebag so it would always look nice, which meant their pants would fade at a different rate than their top, which is why the top was darker. It was the Union blue. The pants were the lighter blue. And now that we got rid of that uniform, the new dress blues just don't have that history, which I thought was kind of cool. But I'm getting nerdy, and Dan is going to fall asleep if we keep this up. So we will move on.
No, I like history. You know that.
Especially history of clothes. Since you write like romance, you got to get that right. Like,
that's
don't
right.
get too many buttons wrong. I mean, I've seen people fight in the comments about the proper number of buttons and which side they face in a revolutionary period romance novel review.
Historical romance is as ticky-tacky as guns and horses are in science fiction and fantasy, and writing both. It's like, okay, in the romance brain, we must count buttons, and in the brain over here, we have to count horseshoes. So we keep it balanced.
Cowboys and Aliens was pretty cool.
You can't go wrong with Cowboys and Aliens. That was a good one.
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty cool. Too.
I mean, he was in love with himself, so that counts as a romance, right?
Well, yeah, maybe it was just a summer thing.
His ego and his well, that joke is probably not age appropriate, so we'll just move on. All right, so the next part of the introduction, next part of the interview, dear listeners, we do have to do the religion question. There are no wrong answers, except some answers are more wrong than others. So are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
All right, Star Wars.
Yes, I am.
Star Trek or Firefly?
I'd have to say Star Trek.
Okay.
Trekkie man. I grew up with William Shatner, and then The Next Generation, Jean-Luc Picard, and I don't know. I just always thought I just always enjoyed it. I mean, it was and I saw its progression from literally in the old days when Shatner was on there, and you had these it looked like someone took cardboard and stuck some little knobs on it and spray painted them silver, to a little more cutting edge with Jean-Luc Picard. And so I mean, I've always been a Trekkie.
And somehow in the space future, they never figured out seatbelts.
They don't need them.
So I will say William Shatner did gift the English language with the Shatner comma.
Yep. It's a thing. It's in the books.
Let's go, Scotty.
It is way cooler than the Oxford comma because it's less pompous.
I don't know about that.
Oh, yeah.
Jenna gets really mad when I say we should abolish the Oxford comma because she's sometimes my editor.
Yes, and the Oxford comma is very, very important.
See what
Oxford
I mean?
commas save lives.
Sometimes she will give me that disappointed mom look when we're doing the FaceTime. It is very, she's got it down. It's really, and then she calls my mom, which is totally cheating.
See, that's the best part is that if he's really screwing up, I have his mom on speed dial. So.
Oh, okay.
All right. Because we are polytheistic here we notice I'm changing the subject. Because we are polytheistic here at the Blasters and Blades podcast, Game of Thrones, The Wheel of Time, or Chronicles of Narnia.
Oh, wow. They're all really good. Wheel of Time was good. Gosh, this is a hard one for me. I really liked Game of Thrones. I mean, it was pretty phenomenal. The books themselves, and Martin is just, he's a writer to admire. Excuse me, I have a cold. He's a writer to admire for sure. His expository details, the world building. I mean, I'd have to say Game of Thrones.
The funny thing is with the Game of Thrones, with Martin, I've seen him on some panels where people are like, oh, that's so unbelievable. People wouldn't do that. And as a historian and as someone who's lived through some life events, I've had this come up where the editor's like, no one would believe this. And I'm like, but it's real. It happened. I can show you for real. How many times he's had that where like, oh, this event or that event isn't believable. And he's like, well, it actually happened on this date at this place. And it always amuses me where people's lives.
The Mad King was a real thing in England. I mean, he pulled from a lot of history in his books as well.
We used to do a part at the end of the review just because it was funny, but it made some authors uncomfortable. So we stopped where we compare the reviews, the good and the bad. And one thing we found is the same item would be you either get a 1-star or 5-star. People loved or hated certain things. But the one funny thing about that was seeing where everyone's lines were. I'm like, okay, you're with me with a fire-breathing dragon in space, but that the Marines didn't cuss enough. That was the bridge too far for you. Like seeing where people's lines are. And so sometimes when you'd see these interviews with Martin, you'd get where those lines are like, that's where you had a problem?
The other things are fine, but that technicality is the one that threw you out. Okay.
It's weird. We've all got our hang-ups. Like for me, I count bullets when I know people are firing, so I get it. We've all got our quirks. That's why I like sci-fi in the future, because then you could go like plasma and energy packs, and then you don't have to worry about that as much. And nobody can tell you you're wrong because you're making it all up. You just got to be.
That's exactly right. That's the beauty of sci-fi.
You just got to be consistent. You can't be wrong. And if you write fantasy with magic, you can have the bottomless quiver, so you don't ever run out of arrows.
Yep. Then you don't have to count anymore.
Yeah,
I think that's why the game masters invented that concept for D&D. They didn't want to count anymore. What do you think, Jana?
Oh, totally. Having done the DM thing for a long, long time, trying to keep track of, all of what everybody's carrying, how many shots of what have you used, and then the encumbrance on it, because everybody ends up picking up a gazillion things. It's like, that's what your bag of holding is for. You just shove stuff in there and nobody cares. And that is why we end up with items that the only thing you track is, okay, the really super special arrow of whatever, you only got one of those, man. But the everyday run-of-the-mill things. Now, that is also a personal preference thing, because my boy loves to track everything in his games, board games, battle games,
He's a metagamer.
tabletop role-playing games, whatever. He wants to know every single troop, every single bullet, everything else, and he will play it out to, I mean, he has tables for, could you really shoot the left eye of a fly out from so many yards with this kind of gun and this kind of boat, and it makes him ever so happy. So you know, everybody has their thing. Yes, he's a network security specialist, so he will find your stuff and he will stop it or he will take it away from you. So he's amazing and I love him. But yeah, there are times he's like, "Do we want to play this game together?" No, because you will make me do math that is much further than my brain wants to go. I want to tell the stories. I don't want to keep track of the arrows.
Are you a gamer yourself, Andrea? Do you like to play board games or card games or any of that stuff?
I'm a poker player.
That's a lot of fun.
I like Texas Hold'em.
Okay.
I think I'm decent at it. Pretty decent at it. You got to realize I observe people for a living, so it's a game of skill in many ways. You know, and my observation skills help a lot.
I play a mean game of Go Fish. All right. So one of the crying shames of adulthood is we do stop asking each other the important question. And thanks to the generosity of our patrons, we are bringing that back. And I'm going to ask you, madam, what is your favorite dinosaur?
Have to be the Velociraptor, because they were very intelligent, right? And they were hunters. So I'd have to say the Velociraptors to me were, you know, they don't make the best kids toy, I don't think, but you know, I liked their intellect and I think they were supposedly one of the smartest dinosaurs to exist. So for me.
Well, and did you see that they've just commissioned a new submarine, ginormous thing, size of a football field, all those kind of good things. And it's the USS Utah, which is the first time that a naval ship has been named that since Pearl Harbor when the USS Utah went down. And its flag is the big face of the Velociraptor, and it's called Terror from the Deep. And I'm like, oh, yeah, if you were going to represent my home state, you put the Velociraptor on it, you be the Terror of the Deep, man, because we have no water out here except Great Salt Lake. Well, and
you do have a Navy base out there. The electronic command is out there.
We absolutely do.
Your waterless state has a Navy base.
We have water. It's just one great big Salt Lake and a couple of little ones, but we have no oceans out here. No place to put a submarine.
Since you're a Star Trek fan, Andrea, we're going to go there. So obviously we're not getting political, dear listeners, so don't go there. But, you know, recently Charlie Kirk passed away, and there's talk that they will name an aircraft carrier after him. The USS Kennedy, also an aircraft carrier. The USS Enterprise, also an aircraft carrier that's out of commission. They're going to redo that one. So at some point in the near future, you will hear on the bridge, some poor sailor is going to have to say Kirk to Enterprise. And they're going to have to do it with a straight face.
Oh,
I'd love
I
to
want
see
to be that sailor.
Yeah, I would love to see that. But imagine a person who gets to say that.
Hopefully they're aware enough to know the coolness of what they're saying. And at this point, like if they don't name it after Charlie, find another Kirk just so we can do that.
Oh, absolutely.
Because that would be too hilarious.
Captain Kirk.
Kirk's Enterprise, right? Like that would be and then record the first time you get to do that and then put it on the internet so we can
I think I'd be fine for that one. Let me get up here and talk. Oh yeah.
So
I think I'd really enjoy it.
We try to be civilized human beings here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. We are no longer knuckle dragging troglodytes. So coffee or tea, and how do you take it?
I do a little bit of both, actually.
Okay.
Coffee, I take it with a little bit of almond milk, and tea, I just drink it with 1 lump of sugar. So, and I usually drink tea in the evening.
Is a lump like measured, like a cube is measured, or is that just a lump of scoop?
Well, you know, you hear 1 lump or 2 of tea. The Queen used to ask that, 1 lump or 2. So
isn't there like a specific spoon they would use to scoop that out? So that would be an actual measurement.
Well, see, I know just enough to pique your interest, but when you start getting down deep in these questions,
I get curious, and then I go down research rabbit holes, and my editors and publishers start throwing rocks at me. I'm like, "Hey, JR, what the heck are you doing? You owe me
No, we
books."
don't. No, there is a sugar spoon.
It's a little sugar cube that goes
Yep.
in my tea, and it's pretty good and sweetens it up while I watch a little TV or read.
There are little sugar spoons, and there was a sugar bowl that goes with them when you have a proper tea service. And so you can serve from that, and that's a single scoop. But then they got into the 1 lump or 2 when we got sugar cubes. And they still have those. You can get them all over, and you can put just 1 little cube in. The cube depends on the which ones you get, because there's half teaspoon ones and there's whole teaspoon ones. Because that way you can still say 1 lump and get twice as much sugar, I guess. But I know all about these from not only tea drinking, but because my sister-in-law's favorite horse loves sugar cubes and candy canes.
Oh.
And so that's how we get Raven to come in out of the field, is that you hold this handful of sugar cubes and she'll come trotting over and she wants sugar cubes and candy canes. And then her breath smells good.
So I just learned something new. So
I'm now
comes to my
imagining,
house.
when you go to the Holiday at the Cracker Barrel and they've got the like 4-pound chocolate bar that they'll sell. And I'm like, I don't understand the problem, doctor. I only had 1 chocolate bar and I just seem to
this
lose
one.
this weight. If you put the straw in it, that means your coffee pot becomes just 1 cup.
Absolutely.
I'm liking where this is going, Jana.
If the doctor limits you to 1 cup, you just get a bigger size. See, you just size up.
And if your doctor has problems with that, Jana can be reached in the show notes. You can just reach out to her.
Yeah, feel free. I'll just turn you back to JR. This number cannot be reached.
I'll have to make another algorithm to block them like I did the flat earthers.
Yes, it's true.
Okay, so obviously, like, you didn't start out saying, I've never read a book, but I want to write one. So how did you develop your love of reading? Because I'm assuming where it started.
It did, actually, but you got to realize I had a mom that was a big literary wannabe, very eccentric. I mean, I want you to picture the 80s. I'd wake up, she'd have an ashtray lipping over with a cigarette, her coffee sitting there, probably laced with the cheap scotch because we were very poor. So probably a little scotch in it while she's tapping away at her typewriter. And she was always talking about some sort of character. She could quote Shakespeare. So she really encouraged a love of reading early on and a love of writing as well. And, that kind of carried through when you grow up around it all the time, dissecting characters and everything. It's kind of hard not to carry forward into your everyday life, in my opinion.
Okay. Was it always something you wanted to do, to write your own stories, or is that something that came later?
I'd have to say it came later. I used to write short stories a lot, and I played around with those. But as a mom, I really devoted a lot of time to my kids, and it's very hard to find time to write, when you have 3 boys. But later on, there was a point when my husband, I'd always wanted to write a book, and I told him that, and he said, well, why don't you stay home with the kids and write that book? So I did. I jumped in and wrote Pawn of the Gods, and that was my first novel. It was an indie novel, and this one's my second, and it's a debut. It's traditionally published now. So and I'm very thankful for that too, to Lodestone for giving my book a chance.
Okay. So was it always speculative fiction that you were interested in, or are your interests more broad?
Well, this is just my opinion, but as a writer, I think you have to read a lot of different genres, and I think I pick up something from every single genre. But I don't know. I mean, I just think it depends on. And I'm sorry, could you ask the question one more time, because I got a little sidetracked.
So when you do your writing, do you focus exclusively on speculative fiction, or do you like to branch outwards? You mentioned you read broadly.
I do. So right now I do. I really write dark fantasy. That's really what I gravitate towards, adult dark fantasy. This YA novel was an outlier. I do include a lot of historical elements in my dark fantasy, but this YA historical time travel fantasy was sort of something I just took on to, inspire young adults to learn more about history.
I majored in it, so you will get no complaints from me on that one. So, okay, now, was history something you were always interested in, or was this more reactionary to wanting your kids to be more willing to learn?
No, I've always been interested in history, and specifically, ancient Carthage, because you got to realize it was greater than Rome at one point. You have all this curiosity about Rome and the gladiatorial games and all of that. Well, Carthage was at 2.0, and then the Romans destroyed it. So, for me, I was always fascinated with that period, and in particular Hannibal, because even today, his military tactics, his wedge formation, that derived from Hannibal, straight up from Hannibal. And we're using it 2,000 years later. The police units use it, the military use it. So I've always been interested in history, and in particular ancient history. And that point in time really does inspire me. And this book in particular, it was sparked because of my interest in this period. But when you have a kid who's a teenager and you're trying to get them interested in this period, and I'm on a history high watching the History Channel, and he's like literally laying in his seat, his legs all shaking like he's serving a prison sentence, and he's just not getting it. And I remember thinking, God, how can I make something like this fun to inspire him to want to learn more? And that's, where Excavating Fate was born.
When I was a kid, I remember reading a book, and it was in my head. It was called A Boy Rides with Hannibal, and the premise was it's from the perspective of like a 12-year-old boy, and that was how old it was when I read it. And his perspective of riding with the elephants as Hannibal crossed the Alps. So I too am a Hannibal fan. Like Carthage was something I was interested in, like the joke. When I was still in the dating phase, I actually broke up with a girl because she said Hannibal was an overrated general. And I'm like, I just don't need that negativity in my life. She thought he was trumped up to make the Romans look cooler. I'm like, lady, I mean, come on. I'm like, clearly we're not getting married. This is just not happening. So you're speaking my love language, lady. I'm going to have to buy your book now. Do you sell them signed on your website?
Yeah, you can access it on my website, and it'll just take you to the Amazon page, because it's Lodestone Books. They have it on their website as well. So
I'm sure I could find a way to make this tax deductible, but now I have to buy it because you picked my favorite subject. So
if you learn something from it, yep, there you go.
That's my goal. That is my goal. If someone reads this book, and you got to realize I incorporated mythology and magic, and this book really isn't about Hannibal per se. My main character lives with Hannibal, but what I wanted the reader to do, I didn't expect this book to take off. It was rejected 60 times.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, and so it gets picked up by Lodestone. I'm like, yeah, well, maybe I'll sell a few hundred copies if I'm lucky. But it's really, there seems to have been some interest in it, and if it persists, I'll probably write a sequel. But what I really wanted was people to fall in love with Carthage, to understand the city, its people, the setting. So when Amara in the sequel marches over the Alps, she's going to be on board with Hannibal. I mean, they're going to be on board with Hannibal. They're going to know why he's doing what he's doing, if that makes sense.
All right. Yeah, so this ends before that march.
So
as far as where the history
is. It's right before that, and it's set in a period where she time travels to Carthage, and she meets his fictional nephew. And she gets, she's a guest in Hannibal's home. She winds up being a guest in his home and interacting with his family. But there's a lot of mythology and some mythological creatures along the way. And so it's really kind of an action adventure kind of a novel. It's got some sci-fi elements in it, and I did it this way just to pique young adults' interest when if they quit reading this book at the end and they go and Google Carthage, they go and Google Hannibal, then my job is done.
Nice. And I see, so it looks like Amara's 19. So where would you say, YA is one of those funny categories that you have, you have younger YA, you have kind of in between YA, and then you have the YA that is really It's written for adults, but with less content for 35-year-old women and older like myself who like to read back. Yes.
Hold on. We got a few more questions, and then we're going to dive in nonstop about the book. So you did mention that you served in the military, and you certainly picked a martial topic for this novel. Do you feel like your time in the Army affected the way you tell stories, and then this story in particular?
Oh, perhaps. You know, that's a good question. I couldn't say that my time in the military inspired this story, but Hannibal's tactics. He was a brilliant military force, and so I'd have to say that it interested me. That side of him interested me. So I guess perhaps because of my military training, maybe that's what helped me gravitate toward him.
Okay,
if that makes sense.
So when you were writing this military topic, did you draw on people that you knew when you served? Obviously, they didn't have airborne back then, but they had elephants. That's almost as cool.
No, because this novel, like I said, is a setup, right? This is to entrench the reader in Carthage. This is to teach them, because so many young adults, my son's girlfriend never heard of Carthage.
What?
And she's brilliant. She's getting her master's degree in forensic biology. Never heard of Carthage.
Nice.
Yeah, so
she didn't know about salting the earth. How is this possible?
I don't know. And she's a huge reader, and she's never heard of it. And she said that she loved it because Rome, because Carthage went against Rome. She really, that drew her in, the Roman side of things. And then when she started reading about Carthage, that piqued her interest. So I wanted the reader to really understand what was lost in history. To be invested in this city and its people.
Okay. So, all right. So when with your interest in Hannibal, you know what? This is going to get into the book. So we're going to pause for a moment while we shamelessly shill for the man, and then we're going to dive back in and we're going to talk nonstop, because you like history, so all of our history topics keep circling back to your book, and I'm cool with that. But let's just satisfy our sponsors first.
Sure.
From R. Max Tilsley, author of Brains, the post-apocalyptic pick-a-path adventure with more than 60 endings, comes the Susie Steele Adventures. Susie has a heart of gold, a set of bad dreams, and a hidden destiny. 6 months ago, Susie's father went to work and never returned, leaving Susie to her hobby of chasing away nannies. That is, until the mysterious and glamorous Cassandra roars into her life, driving a red sports car and promising to be the best of friends. When Susie stumbles on her father's secret lair, a world of magic, ghosts and mysteries beckons. Can she discover the truth, avoid being expelled from school, and keep a ruthless secret society off her back? She's to have a ghost of a chance. She'll need the help of her best friends, one grumpy cat, and a whole lot of daring. The Susie Steele Adventures from R. Max Tilsley. Book 1, The Steel Trap. Book 2, The Steel Bite. Perfect for readers 9+. Available in print and ebook.
All right. Thank you for sticking with us through that commercial interlude. We appreciate it. And now we're going to get back. So, Jana, you were asking questions about age appropriateness.
Now I can ask him now?
Absolutely.
Sure. All right. I am going to ask about this because I'm a mom to a almost teenager and 2 much older boys. But that set aside, so I'm always looking for what things can I safely put in front of whom. So when with the 19-year-old, that kind of puts you in that weird space that sometimes they call new adult, but that's a bad term for reasons I won't get into. So would this be appropriate for a younger reader, or should this be 14, 15 plus? About where would you put the right audience, not only for content, but for concept? Because I find a lot of times with NA or NYA, it's not that there's anything in there that my child couldn't read. It's that it's grown-ups doing grown-up things like taxes and romance, and she just wouldn't be interested as much as whether there's content or not. So tell us, who's your target audience?
My target audience are teenagers ages 16 on up. Now, Amazon, for some reason, has it marked from, I think it was 9th grade. And I've talked to my publisher about it, and they're trying to get that changed, because this is definitely an upper YA novel. I think that they would have to be a highly intelligent, avid reader, middle schooler, 9th, 10th grader, to understand addiction and things like that. And don't get me wrong, it reads YA, but a lot of the themes in it are more upper YA, and I kept the romantic elements very clean. There's some romantic elements. It is YA, so you got to have that in there. But I really didn't want the book to focus on that, but there's a couple of curse words in it, and a couple of reviewers said they really liked how I kept the romance clean, that they'd recommend it to their high schoolers. One lady said she felt it was new adult because there's a little cursing in it, but not much, But I mean, realistically, I don't see a teenager going, "Oh, Skittles," when they're, in the middle of, I mean, they're going to drop an S-bomb once in a while. And so,
high school kids have heard worse in high school.
Exactly. So it is definitely aimed towards your upper YA audience for sure. Even college students and adults alike. A lot of adults seem to be enjoying it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see where it'd have a really good crossover, both given, where you put it in history. And then that college age is one that for YA and for a lot of adult readers do like to go back and pick that up. And so I'm reading it and going, oh, let's see. She gets an internship and then she gets an artifact and it throws her. I'm there. I mean, it's portal fantasy, but time travel portal fantasy. And that is a favorite.
So just so I don't know if you can see the screen. Can you, Andrea?
I can. I see my book cover on it.
So this is a shirt I actually own. I ordered it. It's on its way, so you can appreciate what a history nerd I am. And for those of you listening, it's a picture of the little salt girl, like you would see on the iconic salt Morton. But instead of Morton's, it says SPQR, which is the mark of the Roman Legion. And at the bottom it says, so she's trailing salt, and at the bottom it says Carthago delande est. And I'm probably butchering the Latin, but it is. I have ordered this shirt. I am that much of a nerd.
I thought about wearing it for one of my book signings.
Awesome. So you've kind of made it really easy for you to come up with merch for this one, I would say, because of some of the ideas have already been done for you.
But if it takes off, I mean, I gotta say, shockingly, like I said, it was turned down so many freaking times. I didn't really expect people to like it, but I mean, it stayed on the bestseller, a couple weeks after it launched, and I almost fell over out of my chair, So I mean, there's obviously some interest in it, so that's why I probably will write a sequel, But I didn't expect it.
And so, for those of you who didn't understand the Carthago delande est, it's Latin for Carthage must be destroyed. It was what in the interim, what Slave would whisper into the Roman emperor's ear, reminding them that they had a duty to avenge from Hannibal Barker's father, Hannibal Carr Barker.
Mm-hmm. And Scipio Africanus as well.
Scipio Africanus was the name given to the general who defeated Carthage, defeated Hannibal at Carthage, and Publius Cornelius Scipio Scipio Africano the Elder. I used to have it memorized. It's a really long name. At one point in time, I tried to convince my wife we should name our oldest son after that because it's a strong general name. I was vetoed by everyone, even the nurse at the hospital. So I got no love on that one, but I tried.
Yeah, I could call him Skip, I guess. That's probably what he'd wind up being called. You wanted instead of Scipio.
So you mentioned, okay, here it is. It's Publius Cornelius Scipio Africanus the Elder. There we go. I knew if I paused for a second and thought I'd get it right. So you mentioned time travel. So there are lots of complications you can get yourself involved with when you're dealing with time travel, paradoxes and the like. How do you handle time travel in your novel? Is it something you dive into, or is it more like a plot device?
Well, it is definitely something I dove into, and the alternate. At one point, I really got into the sci-fi part of it, and it was just really too in depth, and a lot of the readers or my betas who read it were like, you need to cut a lot of this. It's just getting too technical, which happens if you start inserting sci-fi elements in it. But yeah, I dove right into the time travel and the ripple effects that changes can have, because at the root of this story, it's about choices having consequences. The devious God in this book, he wants Rome to fall and Carthage to reign. That's a consequence that's going to ripple across, all the universes. So there's different, I don't want to give too much away, but there's a lot going on there. My main character, Amara, she has to make a choice that has consequences that could affect her future when she goes back. So, at the root of it, that's what a lot of what this book is about.
Okay.
The theme of it.
So is this this is a portal fantasy to some degree with the way you've written it. Is this
Absolutely.
one where they go and stay, or is this one where they're popping back and forth? How did you handle the travel? Because that affects the ripples, right?
It does. And I don't want to give, like I said, I don't want to give too much away because
obviously spoiler free because we want them to read the book.
Yeah, well, yeah, but yes, she does return back to her time at the end. She does return. I don't know if it's back to her time. I don't want to give too much away again. But there are some things that happen that could upset the universe, that could cause ripple effects across time. And so, like I said, she has to make some choices at the end. And I really can't elaborate because if I do, I'm going to spoil it. So, unfortunately.
No, that's absolutely okay. So when you were plotting this out, like, when you're trying to plan the ripples, because everybody's seen the butterfly effect, so we get the concept. Did you think about them in advance as you were starting to write them, or was this more of the, hey, I want to do this cool scene because I love history and I want to know what it'd be like in this moment, and what would happen if I actually did that? Like, how did you handle those ripples?
Well, for me, the beauty of a portal fantasy, in my opinion, and when you start getting into interdimensional stuff, is it opens a lot of doors, right? You could have a lot of various outcomes for Carthage and various outcomes for Rome, depending on how you take this series, right? So for me, the ripple in this book was handled because this is kind of an alternate history piece, right? It's a what if question. When Hannibal marched on Cannae, and this is a big, historians have asked this question. He comes in, he's got half his troops, and he beats the Romans. All he had to do that day was march on Rome. And if he would have done that, if he'd have marched on Rome, who knows what history would be like, would America even exist, right? But he didn't. He rested his men instead. And so because of that, when we look at my book, that was my question. What if? What would the world be like if Carthage, reigned instead? And the answer is at the end. In the next book.
We asked that question about a lot of battles about, what if the cavalry had been where they were supposed to be at Gettysburg? Sure. What if he hadn't have sent Pickett on that charge? What if, what if Meade had followed up when Lee was on the run? Like, we asked that questions about a lot of battles in every war, what if, but the human element is people get tired and they need to recover, unfortunately. And in this case, elephants get tired and they need to recover. It's hard to say. I think they could have won, but then again, the flip side is elephants were just as likely to turn on their own team if they panicked, and tired people and tired animals panic more often than not tired ones.
Right. That's true. Well, in the next book, because I'm outlining the sequel right now, she will march over the Alps with Hannibal. She has to. And so, like I said, I don't want to give too much away, but I think the next book is even going to be more fun than this one was. And it's going to give
so much money, but I'll give it to you. Come on. So did you, when you started the intro to this book, do we start with when Hannibal is being, sort of almost indoctrinated by his father Hamilcar to hate Rome, or do you start with after Hamilcar's death when Hannibal's already an adult?
Yeah, Hannibal's already in Carthage, and he's married to a Milche. And, what I wanted to also show in this novel was a side of Hannibal. Everybody knows Hannibal as this fierce warrior, this fierce general. And I kind of wanted to show a different side of him. So when she marches over the Alps in the next book, they don't see this horrible, they do see a change in this man from the first book to the second book. And it is a fictional work. And I did take artistic license in it, but it was a lot of fun along the way, And in the second book, I do want to stay a lot more true to his march over the Alps, but there's going to be some underlying things going on because my main character has to go back and march with them. But I don't want to give, like I said, too much away. She has to learn her timeline.
One of the problems with getting the culture right is, one, everything that's written about Carthage at this point, because they salted the earth and they destroyed everything so well, they were good at erasing their enemies. There's a reason there's not much left about the Druids too. And so most of what we know is through the prejudiced view of the Romans themselves. We don't know as much about their gods other than they were demonized as evil compared to the Roman pantheon. But since you're going back in time from the Carthaginian point of view, do you play with the various gods, Baal, Haman, and all the others? Is that because you're dealing with their culture? They would have, Hannibal himself would have worshipped them?
Yes. Baal Haman is a pivotal character in this book. Sort of, kind of. The character name Baal Haman is in the book. And he reveals himself to my main character, and he sends her on a quest. So, he is prevalent in the book. And when Amara, being an archaeological intern, she enters a tomb. And so that's the first introduction to the gods, and I set it up on an archaeological dig in the beginning because, a lot of young adults are like, Carthage? What is Carthage? So she's at the ruins of ancient Carthage on this dig.
A lot of good time travel stories have them going through a archaeological dig. From Stargate onwards, I've used it in a novel I've written and submitted, so I dig it. The other one I'm curious about, did you deal with Baal Shaman? So Baal just means Lord, and I'm trying to remember what the one was for lady.
Tanit.
Yeah, I think so.
Tanit was his counterpart. I didn't really go into great detail about her. Like I said, I'm introducing this culture to, there's a lot of world building in this novel.
So I was specifically asking about Baal Shaman, who's equivalent of Ares or the god of war for the Carthaginians. Is that something, since he's a warrior, because he would have made offerings, is that something you play with too as an actual character, or more just a concept?
Yes, it's in there.
Nice.
And he's very close with Hannibal and his family, and I used that, and I got that idea because when Hannibal was a boy, his father took him to Baal Haman's temple and made him swear, right in this temple before Baal Haman, that he would forever, never be a friend to Rome. And so, I really took that and showed this closeness with, Hannibal's family, with the Barkids, and showed Baal's closeness with them. But I wanted to paint these pictures where they're interesting for kids, young adults, where people want to learn more about this history. So, like I said, I took some artistic license.
And when you go far enough back, it's all artistic license. There's a lot of guesswork involved. Educated guesswork, but guesswork all the same. Oh,
yeah. I had to borrow from, because there was so little about their history that's known. I had to borrow from the Greeks, like clothing wise, things like that. So there was a lot of research that I had to do just for small things. What kind of furniture they have? What would a Carthaginian home have looked like? They had running water. They had bathhouses. I mean, all this stuff, these little nuances when you're writing a book like this. I mean, it's just a minutia that I'd sit there researching just what did a Carthaginian tub look like. It took me a whole day of reading.
The good thing is because Hannibal's army was so multicultural, because he drew from a lot of tribes, you could get away with a lot of wiggle room on that one. But Jana, you had a question?
Oh, my question was on so is it just part of the magic of time travel that Amara can understand them? Because they would have spoken a very dead language, or has she studied that when she was in college? Because I studied Welsh for a while, which is not a dead language, but it's a dying language. And there's a lot to try to learn, especially when it's not, you don't know what the language drift would have done or anything else. So how does she understand them, or is that all part of the magic of time travel?
No. This, I had to do a lot of thinking about that. Okay. So, Carthage was a trading city. So you got to think it was this cultural melting pot, and they're really close to the Levant. They're close to Greece. So they would have been multilingual. So when Amara goes back, Amara is Greek. And of course, being Greek, she studied ancient Greek, and so when she goes back in time, that's what she speaks, and they understand her. They understand ancient Greek because truly it's
Nice.
right next door.
And
So
Greek,
that's how I handle the language barrier.
And Greek at the time of the Roman Empire was the language of academics, much like Latin is now, Greek was then. So a lot of the great philosophers came out of the Greek. So yeah, that makes sense. That's a good way to do it. It's cheating, and I'm just mad I didn't think of it first.
That is how
Well,
that
who
works.
gave me the idea? My teenager that was apathetic to this whole thing. He was like, because I was going to do Latin because, they had Romans in the city. And he's like, no, Mom, it would have been Greek. And I'm like, I don't know. So we started debating it. He starts helping me research it. And lo and behold, it was, I was like, yeah, you're right.
Nice.
It's got to be Greek.
I call that a parenting win, madam.
It was definitely. I was like, who are you? And what have you done with my son? So
how long is this book?
That's about 350 pages. So
that's what, about 80, 90,000 words roughly?
Yeah, and that 94,000 words.
Okay. I was close.
And if you go to the Amazon, now we're on top of each other. Sorry about that. If you go to the Amazon page, there's a really cool video that goes with it. It's all, 42 seconds. So it's not a very long one, but, whoever decided the, I don't know if they have actors, if they have AI, what they use to create it, but they made some good choices because that is one hot young man. And, I'm an old lady and I'm allowed to say that. Yeah, they've done just a really good job. These are definitely characters that you look at them and you go, okay, from a visual point of view, I want to watch. I want to watch this movie here, read this book because you've got some very cute men with a lot of muscles going on. She's not too bad either. I do love a little video.
So this is a lesson for me.
Standing in front of an elephant, it should be on there too.
So
and she's got a sword, and it is awesome.
Yeah, that's a
little sparkly sword.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's go, JR.
There's a slight lag, dear listener. StreamYard's having some issues, but I will link to that video. I made the mistake of checking it out on my phone when I was doing the prep work, and it does not show the video on the phone. So I didn't know it was there to grab it. Otherwise, we would be showing that right now. But I will link to that video in question in the show notes so you can check it out yourself. But it looks like her publisher made a what Jana is falling in love with, going goo-goo over a marketing
book trailer.
Book trailer.
Yes, it's a book trailer. And it's a very effective one because I'm looking at it and going, it hits a lot of those things that, you get the hint of romance. You get that there's definitely, the time travel going on. There's definitely nice armor, good weaponry, and a lot of, there's going to be a challenge here. So they've really done a good job with it.
Yeah, my social media guy, Shumail Assad, actually made those videos. And there's another one. There should be two on there. Because I uploaded them last night, and the other one is of Hannibal, and it says meet Hannibal Barca. So there should be two on there, one of Hannibal and then one of his fictional nephew with Amara, and they're both kind of. There should have been two. I don't know if Amazon allowed for two, but I put two on it.
Yeah, it's just off of the Amazon page. I wonder, can I get to it on your author page? I might be able to. We'll have to see here. No, I don't see them there. So somewhere, dear listener, there are lots of cool videos, but at least one of them it's definitely doing all the things a book trailer is supposed to do, as far as painting kind of that visual picture in your head that then you can map the book onto. And like I say, I'm digging the swords, and I'm digging the armor, and men in armor. So men in tuxes and men in period armor, it just does something.
Yeah,
That's all I'm going to say.
Very true. Very true. Yeah, he did a great job. I mean, he really did.
It's beautiful.
What I would say is a crying shame is it only has 2 reviews, and it should clearly have more.
Well, it just released on the 14th of October. There's 34 reviews on Goodreads.
Okay.
And so the ebook just released. The paperback doesn't release till the 4th. I think it just released in the UK. So,
nice.
That's and over 1,000 people signed up for the giveaway for the ebook. So I'm sure the reviews will come. But like I said, it just released on the 14th. So I'm thinking it'll take some time to get the reviews. When the paperback releases, all those will get sent out. They'll have to read them. Reviews come slowly, unfortunately, for us authors. I got to keep begging for them.
So you mentioned ebook and paperback. Is this coming out in hardcover since you said it was traditionally published?
It is traditionally published, but they just have paperback and the ebook. And I'm really hoping I can sell enough copies to get an audiobook at some point. Mm-hmm. So, I'm really, really working hard for that.
Okay. That was my next question, because some of us like to read with our ears for various reasons. It's a very good adaptability service for people with vision issues too. So it's always nice when that's an option to have it narrated. So when you envision in your head a narrator, would you think it'd be a female narrator in your head, or would you get a male to do it?
Ultimately, I think it would really work. And that's a good question. It's through Amara's point of view, so it would have to be a female. It'd be kind of cool to have a male one too.
Like the dual narration?
Yeah, we just because there are male characters, but it's all through Amara's eyes. It's written in first person.
Okay.
So it would be a female narrator for sure.
We all know that what she wants is a full cast, all of the parts thing, because that is what we all want. Every author I know envisions that someday there will be the money coming in and the placement and the interest that you can do the full cast ensemble with the music and the things where you're getting a radio show that is your book all at the same time. That everyone I know, that's what we really want in our heart of hearts. Can we get it the first time through? Usually not, but it's what we want in our heart of hearts.
I'm just saying, Netflix, you've got my number if you need to talk to me. All right.
That would be Nirvana. That would be total Nirvana. But right now, I'm just feeling very grateful and blessed to, that this weird little big book was picked up by Lodestone and they took a chance on it. I'm very pleased that people are reading it and they seem to be enjoying it. And that's, that makes me happy too, and that's all an author can ask for.
So a lot of authors have different processes when they're writing. So in your head, when you're picturing Amara, are you picturing like based on a specific model, actress, or whatever, or did you just sort of picture her in your head and go from there? Because people do it both ways. I'm curious your process.
Yeah, I just created her in my mind. She's Greek, kind of tall and thin, and she's kind of self-deprecating person. Kind of got a lot of satire. She's got some trauma in her background. I do observe people for a living, so you have to have a little bit of that in there. And so I just pictured her in my head, and then it kind of grew from there.
So obviously she is the main character, but are there any? And obviously Hannibal's going to be a secondary character, but there are other secondary characters that you especially loved in this first book.
Oh, yeah. When she first goes back in time, she lands on this beach, doesn't know where she is. She's wondering what the heck's going on. And she sees 2 guys running down the beach dressed in like these gladiator clothes. So at first she thinks it's a LARP, but one of them has a bag over their head. Well, the one with the bag over the head who's a hostage is Hannibal's fictional nephew. But there's another character named Bear, and he's a Numidian. And his real name is Tano, but he's so big, she nicknames him Bear. And he was one of my favorite characters in the book. He's brave. He's funny. And I'd have to say another one, there's a Jinn in it named Mokair. And his character was a lot of fun to write, as was Bal Haman. He's kind of the villain of the story. But I like to leave my villains, I don't think anyone's ever truly good or truly bad, right? So your villains have to have some reasons and justifications for the choices that they make. And so I like to leave the question open. Is Baal-Hamon really a villain with what he's trying to do and for his reasons? They're the reasons behind what he wants to do, right? Is he a villain or not? And that's a good question to ask. And I wanted to leave that open for the reader to decide.
So for those of you, just to explain, because you might not be familiar like I am with all of these terms, Numidian was an ancient kingdom of the Numidians. Obviously, that's where they got their name. In Northwest Africa, it was northern part of what is now Algeria. So they would have been African in descent and in culture as we know it today. And they were famous for their cavalry. So they were horsemen. And if you watch the movie Gladiator, one of the gladiators was a Numidian.
Yes, he was.
Just as point of reference. So when you were writing the secondary characters, was that something that you expected? Obviously, the plot required the nephew, but with the other secondary characters, were they people that grew on you as you wrote them, or did you kind of already envision them as they were, and then you sort of liked them after the fact?
Well, to be honest with you, this book has taken me 5 years, literally, from the first time I wrote it till, it's being released. And it went through many incarnations. And initially, Amara was 16 years old, a high schooler. Her dad was a museum curator, and Entangled Teen had it, and they passed on it. And I couldn't, and I kept trying to sell it, kept getting turned down. So I finally attended a workshop, a writer's workshop, and an agent looked at it, and some other published authors did. And they were like, they all loved it, but they said the beginning just doesn't work. It's not about Amara's passion. You're not showing her passion for history, for archaeology. You need to find a way to do that. So again, I dove in, blew the cyber dust off the book, and dove back in again for probably the 60th time, and rewrote this version of it. And so it's gone through a lot of incarnations, and this is, where it wound up. And I changed some of the sub characters. Initially, in the first, draft, Greg was her one of her friends. She had little sidekicks, Greg and Sophie, in the first draft. Now Greg is her brother, and Sophie is his girlfriend. So Greg is a grad student now, where he was a high school student before. So the whole beginning and the characters themselves really grew and changed as I rewrote the book. And this version seems to work. The beginnings and endings are the hardest.
Okay. When you were picking the bad guy, is there a reason, since you're writing from a position where you actually like the Carthaginians, that you chose a Carthaginian deity as the bad guy and not, say, a Roman one?
Well, it just kind of organically happened that way. When I started thinking of this book and learning about Baal-Hamon, and I don't want to give too many spoilers, but it just works for Baal to be the bad guy. And it's explained in the book. But if I tell you why I chose him, then it spoils some of the plot. But just believe me when I tell you, and I think you would see, there's a reason that he needs to be the bad guy in the book. He loves, I'll say this, he loves Carthage. He loves Hannibal. And his ultimate goal is to see Carthage survive. And I just couldn't think of, and I don't know that makes him a bad guy. It might, in Rome's eyes. Right.
Well, it's that old, he's an antagonist. An antagonist doesn't necessarily mean bad guy. It just means the person who might be standing in the way of what your protagonist wants or needs. And often the antagonist has some really great reasons for why they're doing what they're doing, because everybody is the hero of their own story. So I can.
But he muddies the waters a lot for Amara. He really does muddy the waters, and he asks a lot of questions that, like I said, put her in an impossible position. I'm sorry, you were going to ask a question, JR?
No, I was saying it's that old line from Wreck-It Ralph, just because you're a bad guy doesn't mean you're a bad guy.
Right.
When Nick is here, he does the accents. I don't really do accents. There's a reason I'm not a voice actor. But yeah, I see what you're saying, Jenna, and that just because they're the antagonist doesn't necessarily mean they're the impersonification of evil.
There you go.
There's room for both. I think oftentimes we tend to see more and more fiction where the good is super good and the evil is super evil, and we've started avoiding the gray. And I think you can have clear moral lessons and still have somewhat murky characters that can be fun to explore. So it's definitely.
Well, oh, go ahead.
I would say it definitely makes it for interesting storytelling when you can add that nuance.
Absolutely. Well, Milton, I say that's one of the first fantasies, Paradise Lost, but it's one of my favorite reads. And you look at the corrosiveness of jealousy in that book, right? Milton took Satan, one of the biggest villains in history, and made him sympathetic. You know what I mean? And really ask questions about why did Eve make the choices she did, right? And everything that drove Satan was because of his jealousy. So, you start to see this and start peeling back these layers, right, about morality and all that. And then I see it every day when I'm talking to clients, that this kind of goes in there and they're struggling with, I'm a bad person, but they want to be good. Or in their minds, sometimes they think they're bad, right? So these are characters, things that we're dealing with on a daily basis. So I try to insert that and kind of follow these and ask these questions in fiction. Are people really good? Are they really bad? Is anyone really good or bad? Or are we all just trying to make it through, muddle through, and do the best we can? Even people perceived as the bad guys.
Okay. So when she ports through, because that's one of the age-old questions with time travel is what you bring with you and what's able to come. What did she, aside from her knowledge of ancient Greek as a language, what did she bring with her?
Her team. That went into the tomb with her. She does. They don't show up till later, but she does bring in her team with her, and they all get sucked in together. And when she shows up in Carthage, she's like, "Where the hell are they?" Right? It's just her. And so, these are questions that she has to try to uncover. She's trying to find her people when she gets there because she saw them get sucked in with her, but now they're not there. So she has to try to find them.
A few rifles could have, made so Rome wasn't a problem anymore, is all.
Well, when she's in a tomb, you're not going to bring a rifle into a tomb.
I know.
Archaeologist.
Are you?
Although they are blown away by her cell phone. Yeah, I will say that.
No cell though, unfortunately, so she's not ordering any takeout. Are you familiar with Harry Turtledove's Guns of the South?
I'm sorry?
Are you familiar with Harry Turtledove's Guns of the South?
I don't think so, no.
Basically, it's time travel where South Afrikaners at the time of apartheid take AK-47s back to the Confederacy. The average Civil War rifle is, 3 to 6 rounds range, depending on the rifle, because it was varied per minute, and an AK can get about 60. I've thought about that concept would be fun to do both at the Revolution, and then because I like Carthage, the other time I would like to take modern weapons into the past would be so Hannibal could, do a little bit better.
That would be interesting.
But Janice says I have to write the books for her first. So,
hey, I'm just saying, if we want to get them out, we have to write them and not get distracted by other things.
Oh, shiny! What? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Is there
promises?
Is there anything about this book that we didn't talk about before I go down another history rabbit hole and bore Jana again?
I didn't say I was bored.
No, I think we covered the highlights. You got history, magic, mythology, all tied up in one in a nice little bow. I hope it's a fun read for, and I hope that people learn something along the way as they get to the end.
Then as a concluding question, obviously you're outlining the second book. You're going to be writing it at some point, assuming it doesn't get picked up. Does this give you a satisfactory ending if it becomes a standalone?
It's a happily forever after for now.
Okay.
Kind of an ending. Okay. So it leaves an opening for a sequel, for sure.
Well, the good news, dear listener, is it's with all literary contracts, there's a time limit on them, so it's not a forever thing. So even if the publisher doesn't pick it up, in a few years, she could always revisit it. So never say never.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I'm really hoping that a publisher will.
Me too.
I'm finishing up a dark fantasy series right now. The first book in a paranormal therapist series. So once I'm done with it, I'm going to really dive into the sequel to Excavating Fate.
All right. So this is the part, dear listener, where I remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right books find the right readers. So do your part. It really does make a difference. Generally speaking, wherever you buy books, you can leave the reviews. So do your part. And if it won't let you leave a review there, then start a website and leave your own reviews. Do a reviewing website of books. And eventually you'll do enough of them. Authors will give you their books for free just so you will review them. And you will have so many books to read, you will run out of time in a day. It's a great problem to have. So seriously, share your thoughts. It helps. It really does make a difference. It pushes the needles for people to find books they might otherwise not have. And so it does make a difference. And with that, how might listeners and viewers at home find you, Andrea?
They can find me on Instagram, on all the social media sites, but I am most active on Instagram and Threads. So, or you can find me at my website at Andrea Franco-Cook, author.com.
Okay. And I will link to all of that in the show notes, dear listener. So check those out, and you can find us. Oh, wait a minute, because I haven't added Jana yet. One day, Jana, I will get you on our link tree, but it's not today.
I don't believe you anymore. It's been ages, and it's never going to happen. So you can find me over at linktr.ee/Opal Kingdom Press. And you can come over to the press for open calls. I will be opening another call for this coming January. So this will come out in November. So you had the whole Christmas time to think about it. If you are a writer, or if you ever wanted to dabble in writing, then you can send me calls over there. And all the other links are connected to that. I tell everybody I'm the loser at hide and go seek on the internet. So if you go look for these pen names, the ones over here, you'll find me.
See, I'm curious, and she won't even tell me, and we write together about the pen names that are the secret ones, the smoochy ones. I'm curious.
No, the one smoochy one is not secret. It's the other ones that are secret. You don't even know what those ones write about. Ha ha.
I know. That's why I'm
a girl
curious.
has to have some secrets. It's true.
See, that's my problem is I'm curious about everything. That's why I was so good in school, because I wanted to know all the things. All right.
Yes, but why you were so scattered as an author, finish your stuff. Now, tell them where you can find us.
All right. You can find us on our link tree at linktr.ee, linktree/Blasters and Blaze Podcast. Again, linktree/Blasters and Blaze Podcast, where we link to all the things: the BitChute, the Rumble, the YouTube, the TikTok, the Twitters. We've got our Spotify, our Discord, our Blasters and Blaze Facebook group and Facebook page. We have our email, blastersandblazepodcast@gmail.com. Again, blastersandblazepodcast@gmail.com for professional purposes only. People, save the shenanigans from out of Stabby Stab over there on the Instagram, the Twitter, and the email. You can support the show by going to buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section that is for the podcast, and I promise I will keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will drink that coffee brand coffee until it pours out of their eyeballs, and we swim away on a river of caffeinated goodness until we end up in Carthage ourselves, and then we can kill those dastardly Romans. They had it coming though, Jana, so it's okay.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind.
And if you want some of that coffee brand coffee yourself, so you too can get so caffeinated you travel through time, the link is in the show notes. The discount code is podcast grunts. You get 10% off. We get a little bit of a kickback. It's a win-win, people. And with that, I would like to thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy and co-host, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blaze Podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. All right, thank you for coming on, Andrea. We'll have to have you back for some paranormal.
Thank you for having me.
And for your paranormal, because Jana was interested in the pre-show, so now I have to invite you back. And until next time.
I appreciate it.
I will hit the end button. Don't cuss yet, Jana. Jeez.